What's up YouTube? It's your boy Jerome back with another video. Apple just had their iPhone 13 event and this is the only video you need to watch in order to get all of the news on everything they just announced. Now, there were four major products that they talked about during this event. First, they started off talking about Apple TV Plus, then they moved on to talk about iPad a little bit, and then, of course, Apple Watch Series 7, and finally, the four new iPhone models that we're getting this fall. There wasn't really anything major in terms of Apple TV Plus, just basically Apple flexing on how many different nominations and awards that their shows have gotten. For example, they talked about Ted Lasso, which has gotten 20 Emmy nominations, which is apparently the record for any comedy series ever. Other than that, they just played a little trailer for some new shows that are coming out this fall and some new seasons of old shows that we've already seen. Next, they moved on to talk about iPad just very briefly, where they upgraded the base level iPad as well as the iPad mini. The base level iPad is getting a little bit of a boost with a new A15 Bionic chip, which is supposed to make the CPU, GPU, and neural engine all 20% faster. It's also getting a new 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera on the front, as well as they're adding the center stage feature from the iPad Pro, which will basically center you in the frame during FaceTime calls, Zooms, and apparently even on TikTok now. That iPad is going to start at $329 for a 64 gigabyte model, or $299 if you're buying for school. Next, they talked about iPad mini, which is getting a much bigger upgrade. The iPad mini is now getting that square body design to match the iPad Pro and the iPad Air. This new iPad mini's got a 40% faster CPU, an 80% faster GPU, and a neural engine that's twice as fast. So honestly, a pretty big upgrade in terms of the actual processor. It's also dropped the Apple Lightning port in favor of USB-C, and Apple says that most USB-C accessories should work with this iPad, so good for them for finally making that upgrade. This iPad mini starts at $499 for the 64 gigabyte model and is available starting September 24th. Moving right along, let's talk about Apple Watch Series 7. So Apple made a bunch of claims about Apple Watch Series 7, the best watch ever, yada yada yada. It honestly doesn't feel very much different. I think the main difference here is that they made the screen about 20% bigger again and rounded the edges off a little bit more, but personally I was hoping for more of that square body feel that the iPhones and iPads and I guess Macs have now. Feels like the Apple Watch is kind of straggling behind in terms of design. One thing they were able to add with the ever so slightly larger screen is a full-size keyboard on the Apple Watch, so you can actually now type out messages or you swipe to text as well. I will say the biggest change and most useful change that I think they made on this watch is they added fast charging, and they actually even said that this watch would charge 33% faster than the previous model, and even went as far as to say 8 minutes on the charger could get you 8 extra hours. Then there was the small little caveat that they just tried to slide in and hope that no one would catch, where they said 8 hours of sleep tracking, which I would assume is probably the least battery intensive activity that the Apple Watch does. So take that how you will, but 8 minutes on the charger will get you 8 hours of sleep tracking. It starts at $399, and all they said was that it would be available later this fall. Now for what you've been waiting for, the iPhone 13. Similar to last year, they've got four new iPhone models. They've got the iPhone 13, the iPhone 13 mini, they've got the iPhone 13 Pro, and of course the iPhone 13 Pro Max. A lot of words. They started off talking about the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 mini. From a design standpoint, this phone really isn't that different from last year's iPhone 12. They did make the notch on the front of the phone about 20% smaller, but realistically, you probably won't even be able to tell the difference. It's still much bigger than other phones on the market, and that little bit of screen real estate that you get back, is it really even useful? I don't think so, but we'll be able to see more when we actually get the phone in our hands. Another weird design thing they did just to make the phone look a little different from last year's is on the back-facing cameras, instead of making the alignment vertical for the two cameras like last year's model was, they made it diagonal. I don't know if this has like a functional purpose at all, or if they just wanted to make it look different so you could tell. I don't know. Both these models do have a slightly larger battery, so with the iPhone 13, you're gonna get about an hour and a half more battery life, and with the iPhone 13 mini, you're gonna get about 2.5 hours more battery life than the previous models. And normally on this channel, I don't talk about specs very often because specs don't really mean anything. All we really care about is the real world use. But just to paint you a clear picture, this year we do have a brand new A15 Bionic chip, which is a 6-core CPU said to be 50% faster than other smartphones on the market, a 4-core GPU that's also supposed to be 30% faster than the competition. And in classic Apple fashion, they've of course made the cameras ever so slightly better, like they continually do every single year. The major changes here are a brand new, larger sensor that's going to let in more light and give you better performance in low light situations, and they're bringing optical image stabilization to these base level phones. The most impressive new feature of these cameras though is something that they're calling cinematic mode when you're shooting video. You know when you're watching a movie and you can see the person's face in focus, and then all of a sudden they'll focus on something else in the background, and then they'll bring focus back to the person that's actually talking? Well, they're bringing this feature to iPhone, which is kind of crazy but also super exciting. So let me nerd out real quick. When you're watching a video like this, there's two things that creates that blurry background. One, it's how far away your subject, so in this case, me, is from the background. So if I go closer to the camera, the background gets a little bit more blurry. But if I back up, then the background gets a little clearer. The second thing that creates that separation is what's called aperture on your camera. It's this little F number. So the lower that number is, the more blurry your background will be. And I'm trying to keep things very simple here, so for all the experts watching the video, please don't hate me. So as that number gets lower, you're allowing more light to come into the camera to allow for this nice picture with that blurry background. So as you make that number bigger, because you're letting less light in, the picture is gonna get darker, but at the same time, your background is gonna get clearer. So you can see here, the background is pretty clear even though I'm so close to the camera. But if I go all the way back to the lowest setting, all of a sudden the background is super blurry again. What's really exciting about what Apple's done here is an iPhone can't actually close or open its lens, so it can't actually let more or less light in. It's all being done in the software. They're basically using the same thing they do for portrait mode to kind of imitate what a real DSLR camera or film camera would be able to do. And it's very, very cool, and it looks really good too, which makes me question if I still need this camera. The iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 mini are both going to start with 128 gigabytes of storage, the iPhone 13 starting at $799 and the iPhone 13 mini starting at $699. And lastly, they talked about the iPhone 13 Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. These two higher models basically have all the same features as the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 mini, with the addition of one extra core in the GPU, which makes it 50% faster than the competitors as opposed to just the measly 30% faster. And of course, the big change that everyone has been waiting for, the ProMotion 120 Hz display is going to be on the iPhone 13 Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. This is the same display technology they're using in the iPad Pro from like 2 years ago. It makes everything looks crisp, super smooth, everything from typing, scrolling, videos, all that stuff will look so much better on this 120 Hz display. But to be honest with you, if you're not like a tech junkie, you honestly probably won't be able to tell that much of a difference. I will say the cool thing they've done with this technology is it only goes up to 120 hertz when it needs to, like when you're scrolling. But if you're looking at a still image or not doing anything that involves motion on the screen, it'll keep it down at 10 hertz to preserve a little bit more battery life. And of course, just take it back to cameras for a second, the iPhone 13 Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro Max both have 3 new cameras. The first is a 77mm telephoto camera with 3 times optical zoom. The second is a ultra-wide camera that has 92% better performance in low-light situations. And finally, a new wide camera that is supposed to be 2.2 times better in low-light situations. The other big thing that they've added specifically on these 2 higher-end models is macro photography. So if you've ever seen people take those super close-up shots of flowers or insects, stuff like that, typically that requires a special lens, but Apple has figured out a way to use its ultra-wide lens with some software trickery magic going on to make it look like a macro image. And so that's one of the new features that's been added to these 2 higher-end models. The iPhone 13 Pro is going to start at $999 and the iPhone 13 Pro Max is going to start at $1099, both starting with 128 gigabytes. Pre-orders for all 4 models of the iPhone 13 are starting this Friday, September 17th, with all of them shipping and being available in your hands by September 24th. And that was everything they covered in the iPhone event today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to smash that like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends. I'm Jerome, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.